On a day where I'm on the road and not in the normal Phinside studios, not only do we get a big update regarding the cap situation for the NFL and the Miami Dolphins this upcoming season, but on top of that, the Miami Dolphins have started to make the moves we've been anticipating all offseason since it started. We got a ton to talk about as we'll be saying farewell to X and Ogbah. On top of that, I will give you the latest on the cap, including what the current cap space number is for the Miami Dolphins. We got a ton to discuss. Do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you're new. As always, let's get into this.
Loses the football. Touchdown!
You have got to be kidding me.
Jalen Waddle has a Dolphin touchdown. And he will score. He's got field on the near side. That open. Touchdown.
The run from Tua Tagovailoa.
Touchdown.
He's going deep. He's got it for a touchdown again. Beautiful day to be a Dolphin fan. Let's go!
What is good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason. We're back here for another one. As you can tell, I'm not in my normal Phinside The NFL studios. I am out on the road. Luckily, I brought everything with me so I could go live because I had a feeling the moment I make myself unavailable, the Miami Dolphins will start doing things. And sure enough, here we are as I am sitting here talking to you. Now, I do have an actual new set coming to the Phinside The NFL studios, but that will be coming in the next few months. I'm just working on getting that set up. Hopefully I can have that up and running for the NFL draft. So I do have a new set coming, but this is not a new set. This is my makeshift. I'm on the road and I'm a Miami Dolphins content creator set. So we're doing with what we got here. So appreciate y'all already coming through. Listen, I appreciate each and every one of you coming through tonight on a Friday where your team, man, things are moving, things are shaking, and it is crazy. So I appreciate all of you taking some time out on your Friday night. Do me the favor. It's certainly going to help a lot because your boy is behind the 8 ball. You know, I'm usually the first one out going live when news breaks. So I'm already behind the 8 ball. So do me the favor, already over 150 of you in the room, smash that like button, subscribe if you're new, and just keep smashing that like button because it's going to go a long way. Help me out with my friend Al, everybody's pal, algorithm. All right. So, man, listen, before we get into everything, I got to say, this is a bittersweet day for Miami Dolphin fans. And again, I'm having flashbacks to Rashad Jones and Jarvis Landry with players that either, their career basically fizzled out, Rashad Jones in the end of it, or had to move on, Jarvis Landry, who I loved, who were some of my personal favorite players to ever don the aqua and orange. Now, the logo always comes above these players unless you're transcendent beyond the logo, and it's going to take multiple Super Bowls for that to happen. But, so it's bittersweet for me because, like Jarvis, like Rashad, I wish our franchise won more for their sake. I really do. That's the thing that sucks about all of this is we weren't able to give these guys, we weren't even give even more memories, basically nothing but regular season memories, which again, which is why I'll never get why people take Tua for granted so much and what we're building for granted so much when we've had back-to-back playoff appearances for the first time in 20 years. I mean, it wasn't until recently X really started seeing the playoffs consistently in Miami. It wasn't until recently we've had 4 straight winning seasons that X has started to realize what a winning franchise is. It was just at the tail end, and it was too little too late, and it sucks. It sucks. Jarvis only really had that 1 year, 2016. So it sucks, man. I wish Rashad Jones, everyone knows, was one of my favorite defensive players in the last 15 years, 20 years on this team. Right up there with X. I would put them right up there with guys like, I loved Zach, I loved Jason, but I loved like Brock Marion. I loved Jeremiah Bell when he was here. Obviously, I loved Pat. I love Sam Madison. I know I would have grown to love Sean Smith and Vontae Davis because I was already head over heels for them as a combo and what I thought they would turn into. Lo and behold, Sean Smith turns into a stud with the Chiefs, and Vontae turns into a stud with the Colts. And then, thank God, still had a little Dolphin in him when he walked out on the Buffalo Bills at halftime. So, listen, I'm an offensive guy first, but there's a lot of defensive players that have come through the last 20 years, specifically in that secondary that I love. I mean, Javon Holland's going to be one of those guys, right? Because, I was talking about Javon Holland, us drafting him. The draft was in April. When I dropped my top 25 college players Dolphin fans should watch in October, Javon Holland was in the top 10 of that. I love Javon Holland, and he's going to be one of those players. And I hope we can win for some of these guys. I really do, man. It sucks to see this greatness come through and it not reach its full potential on a winning, on the winning aspect of things. And, it just puts further things into perspective with the Dan Marino scenario. This is such a team sport. We've had greatness come through on both sides of the ball, and none of them have won anything. I mean, Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas, what did we win? We all can all admit, Zach Thomas changed the position. Guys like Brian Urlacher and Luke Kuechly and such, they felt like offsprings of what Zach Thomas had built. But what did we do in the playoffs with Zach? Again, this is why when people want to whine and cry about Tua, I've seen a quarterback hold a supremely talented Miami Dolphins roster back, and he goes by the name of Jay Fiedler, not Tua Tagovailoa. I've seen a championship roster be held back, and it was Jay Fiedler. Okay, that you want to talk about see, that's why I tell you, I don't think a lot of these people were really been around for the last 20 years. Because if they've been around for the last 20 years, they would have realized, talk about holding a roster back, Jay Fiedler. How many of us in the chat, there's over 200 of you in the chat right now. How many of you in the chat used to say to yourself, we went through the tears with Marino, whether it was losing to the Bills, in the AFC Championship, whether it's a Stoyanovich miss against the Chargers in a year where that roster felt like we'd go, or it was watching Marino go out with not even a sputter against the Jags. We've been through the tears in the 90s with Marino, all right? How many of y'all used to sit there? You would just shake your head and you'd be like, this is when it felt like it was same old Dolphins was starting, because you would sit there and you'd be like, for those people who were around that time, even for me, right? So we're talking, I was in my late teens, right? I was 15 in 2000. So just to put it in perspective where I was at an age, I remember just sitting there shaking my head being like, we missed a window of overlapping from potential multiple championships. Marino missed what Elway got with Terrell Davis. Marino missed that with Ricky by like a few years. And it absolutely tears my heart out. Tears my heart out because I think that's how close Marino was to actually getting back to the show and probably winning one. That defense was good. That defense was stellar. So, the run game was where it was at with Ricky. We can talk about the receivers and the tight ends that came through, because we all know the Randy McMichaels and Chris Chambers, et cetera, et cetera. I know he set the records in 84, but my God, if he would have came in the league in 1989, if he would have came into the league in 1989 or 1990, Dan Marino, and you would add an extra 5 years onto his career, my God. Do you know what we would have had? Do you know what we would have had in Miami? Do you know the greatness we would have witnessed? Because listen, why did they after the Achilles, that's when the ball was ready to be taken out of Marino's hand a bit more and given to a running back. That's why Kareem Abdul-Jabbar hit 1,000 yards. Let's do the math here. Marino only ever had 3 top 10 defenses and one 1,000-yard rusher in his whole career. And the ball was ready to be taken out of his hands. I mean, we know the rumors. We know the stories that we had a deal in the works for Barry Sanders. Barry Sanders brought it to the Lions because he didn't want to play there anymore. They told him to go seek a trade. He had found a deal with the Dolphins. They said, we're not trading you. And then Barry basically turned around and said, I'm retiring. I mean, we also know Dan Marino was paid a extra little bonus to retire a Miami Dolphin because the Vikings were looking to bring him in with a young Randy Moss and and an older Chris Carter. So I'm telling you, man, we missed maybe 4 or 5 years of absolute magic by like the skin of our teeth. That's what's crazy. We missed getting our Elway story with Marino by like 3 years. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Man. Sucks. Sucks. One of the biggest regrets as a Dolphin fan, I think, is we just missed that window by the slightest. But anyways, I digress. It sucks that Xavien Howard and players like that are going to fall into that category, and that's just the nature of the business. Is he going to go to the Houston Texans? Is he going to go home? I don't know, but I'll tell you this much. If he can stay healthy, Xavien Howard at the right cost makes any secondary better in the NFL. And I wish he would be coming back here at the right cost. I wish he'd be saying, you know what? You guys did me good a couple of years ago when you gave me new money when my contract the ink on my contract hadn't even dried yet. Here you go. I wish, but we're not living in that world. We're just not right now, it seems, right? So anyways, let's get into the breaking news today. Now, I might be a few hours late here, but hey, it's still breaking, right? So, let's get into how it all started. Now, we'll get into the releases and then we'll get into the cap because we do have a lot to go over here. So, we'll start off with the releases because these are obviously the hot topics. We knew these were coming. And here we go. The first one arrived today at about 2:10. And it was from Adam Schefter when he said the Dolphins plan to release veteran linebacker Emmanuel Ogbah today. Per source, Miami signed Ogbah to a 4-year, $65 million deal after he posted back-to-back 9-sack seasons in 2020 and 2021. This deal alone saves us a little over $13 million in cap space. Just a little over that in cap space. We all knew this was imminent. This saves you about $13.7 million, and he's a pre-June 1st designation. Now, we're going to get into the numbers and what that counts, so don't worry, we're going to get there. Now, Ogbah, he was set to have a cap hit of $17.7 million this year. That would have been the 7th highest on the team. But the problem is there was no more guaranteed money on the deal. Now, we know there was issues with players and Vic Fangio specifically over Emmanuel Ogbah this year. They felt he should have been out there because of the production he was giving you relative to the snaps, the low amount of snaps. There was a strong contingent in that locker room that said, hey, he needs to be starting for us. Fangio was approached about it, and we're going to get into Fangio here in a sec. But Fangio was approached about it and kind of shook him off. So, listen, here's the deal. Ogbah, He had 5 sacks in 2023. In 2022, he had that season-ending triceps injury, but he only had 1 sack. Only played 9 games. His playing time, he had 5 sacks this year, but his playing time really plummeted under Vic Fangio. And what does this do? This adds to, what does this do? This adds to the need. Now we need edges. We're already down Jalen Phillips. We're already down Bradley Chubb. We're already down Cameron Good heading into camp. And now Ogbah's gone. And it makes sense because you're not taking a $17.7 million cap hit on a guy like that who hasn't been able to stay healthy over the last 2 years, hasn't been able to recapture the form he had from 3 years ago, et cetera, et cetera. We all knew this move was coming. It was inevitable. It ended up not even being the biggest move of the day, but we all knew it was inevitable. Listen, I appreciate Emmanuel Ogbah and everything he's done for this organization. I remember back when we signed him in free agency, me and EM were very, very high on this signing because you saw what he did in Kansas City. Again, a place where he couldn't stay healthy. It was between Cleveland, where he couldn't stay healthy as well, then came to Kansas City. We picked him up, originally signed him. If you go back to what we originally signed him when we brought him in, right? It was originally a 2-year deal worth $15 million in 2020. And because of how good he was over the next 2 seasons, flirting with 10 sacks almost. He had 9 sacks on each of the next 2 seasons. We rewarded him with that $65 million deal. Now, in hindsight, because we made the Chubb move, because of where we went schematically under Fangio, was it the best move? No, but that's using hindsight. We didn't know a guy like Bradley Chubb would become available and Chris Greer would pull the trigger on that. We didn't know at the time that they gave him this money. So it is what it is. And I mean, listen, it sucks to see Ogbah go. He's been a great contributor. He's been a leader. The players liked him. But c'est la vie, it's time to move on. And we all kind of knew this was coming. Again, are any of you in the chat right now blindsided by Emmanuel Ogbah being released? Are any of you? No one is. We all expected this. This is something we've been talking about during the season, never mind when the offseason began. We all knew this was going to come down the pipeline. We all knew what the deal was. So, appreciate you, Emmanuel. Thank you for your contribution. I mean, listen, I know the Lincolns and the George Washingtons, they thanked you already as you stack them up. But from a fan of this team, from a content creator perspective, thank you for, hey, there were some times where you got me hyped up and I got out of my chair because you made a big play. So thank you for the moments. Thank you for the memories. And unless you come back on the super cheap, I wish you nothing but the best moving forward. Shout out tonight. He gifted one Phinside the NFL membership. Then he turned around and he gifted another Phinside the NFL membership. Appreciate you, Knight. One of the mods here, one of the big supporters of the channel. Coach AJ, member for 21 months. Appreciate you, sir. And he says, Xavien Howard, future Ring of Honor. Agreed, 110%. 110%. The moment he retires, put him in the Ring of Honor. 110%. And the watch, Mr. aka Senor Relojes says, enjoy your vacation, brother. I love that we're talking about Marino. I still have nightmares with the Stojanovich Mitch. Oh my God. That's the real Finkel story, eh? That year the Super Bowl was in Miami, would have been the 10th anniversary of his loss to Montana. That's the real Finkel story. That's the real Finkel story. Now, I know everyone's going to say, obviously, it's going to be the Bills, Super Bowl wide right from Scott Norwood, 47-yard miss. But man, Ray Finkel actually existed in Miami, and his name was Stojanovich. And it hurt. It hurt, man. That one hurt. Listen, I remember, when we lost in the 92-93 AFC Championship. to Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas and the Bills. I mean, that was the first football game I remember really crying to. I was 7 years old, going to be 8. I remember crying over that. I remember the Stoyanovich. I remember crying over the Stoyanovich. Well, not so much crying. I think that was actually the first, if I remember correctly, that was the first time I raged. Actually, the first 2 times I remember raging over sports teams were because of Florida teams. The Stoyanovich miss, and then when the Panthers beat my Penguins in the 96 Eastern Conference Finals, the year of the Rat, with Van Beesbrook and Mellenby and stuff like that. I lost my mind when we lost that series, because that Penguins team should have won the Stanley Cup. That also happened to us in 93 too. That team, the 93 team, probably should have three-peated for the Penguins. I remember my brother lost his mind when we I believe we lost that year to, was it Healy and the Islanders, I want to say. We got knocked out by. And yeah, but I remember the first the first time I ever cried at a sports loss was that Bills AFC Championship loss, and then the first 2 times I raged over a playoff loss was a Stoyanovich miss, and then losing to the Panthers when the Penguins lost to the Panthers. So yeah. Don't worry, I'm coming to your comment, AJ, because I just saw it. Shout out to D-Hug All Day. He gifted 1 Phinside the NFL membership. I love the pay it forward support, y'all. I love how y'all gift memberships to people so they can go to the community tab. They can see the accuracy of the insider info I give, and they can get access to emojis, and they can feel like part of this channel. And they can also get, the logo next to the name, which will update every certain amount of months, because I used every single logo we've been through. And then Knight says, back from the honeymoon to find my favorite modern day Dolphin is leaving. I understand, but it sucks. I'm gonna miss X-Man. Shout out to Knight. Shout out to him and his wife. I hope the honeymoon was absolutely fantastic. Let me know in the chat where your honeymoon was at, brother. You got to let me know, because I'm going to tell you this, man. Me and my wife, we went to St. Lucia, Jade Mountain in St. Lucia. And it was absolutely a memorable honeymoon. It was awesome. It honestly, the outside looked like where like the Lost Boys would live. It was crazy. So shout out to you, man. Shout out to you. I appreciate you, sir. And man, we got into that. It was nice, man. We were in the I believe we were in the what was it, the Star Sanctuary? It was either the Star Sanctuary or the Moon Sanctuary, and it was real nice. So where did you go, Knight? Let me see. You got up in there. And don't worry, AJ, I'm coming back to you. Let me know in the chat where you went, Knight. How about them Panthers reason? Brother, I can already see this. Listen. First of all, I gotta say, and I'm not saying you are. All right, AJ. I'm not saying you are, because I don't know. First of all, I gotta say, all these South Florida fans that are now hockey fans all of a sudden because the Panthers have put together a good squad. Where were y'all in the early Huberdeau days? I'm not even gonna go back to 10 years ago, but even where were y'all in the early Huberdeau days? Let's put that out there first, okay? Secondly, listen, I'm gonna teach you something about hockey right now. I'm gonna teach you. The thing you don't want to win, you never want to win the President's Trophy. Never. Go look at the Penguins, and when we've won our Stanley Cups or gone to the Stanley Cup, President's Trophy winners never win the Stanley Cup. That's number one. So you never want. So I can already see what the Panthers are starting to turn into. I think the Florida Panthers are starting to turn into, and we see it all the time. The Capitals were this for years and years and years before they finally won a Stanley Cup a couple years ago. They look like they're going to be one of the top regular seasons, and then when the regular season teams, when the playoffs come, it's all about matchups. Hockey is all about matchups, okay? I'll take you back years ago when Yaroslav Halak, the goaltender for the Montreal Canadiens, debuted in his rookie season, he went on a run and they beat the Penguins and they beat the Capitals. Two stacked rosters at the time. They beat them because they just matched up really well against them. And hockey is all about matchups. And I just look at the Panthers, and I don't see a deep playoff. I don't see a Stanley Cup team. I don't. Exactly. You never want to win the president. You never want to win the president's trophy. Trust me, you never want to win the president's trophy. That's the last thing you want to win because, it's very rare. Like, I mean, it's very rare. You got to have like a stacked roster, like what the Tampa Bay Lightning have been recently. You know what I mean? And look at even with the Tampa Bay. See, the big thing too, what teams have learned over the last couple of years in the NHL, and it's not really fair, is they're circumventing the cap by they put players on IR, and then when the playoffs start, there is no cap. So what I mean is this, okay? When players go on IR in the NHL, they do not cost against your cap. So the cap's around 80-ish million. All right. So if you got, let's say you've got two guys out and they accumulate about 13, 14 million. All right. You can throw them on IR, trade draft assets, get players or sign players to fill up that 14 million. And then when the playoffs start, you can activate them off IR. And so you're basically working with like a $94 million team against an $80 million cap in the playoffs. It's real sleazy how they got it set up. Anyways, enough hockey talk. We got to get into this guy because it's my guy. Xavien Howard. Xavien Howard, not too long after Emmanuel Ogbah came through, just a little bit over an hour after the news came down about Emmanuel Ogbah. The Dolphins, it came out from Mike Garofalo, that the Dolphins have informed Xavien Howard he will be released at the start of the league year, sources told Mike Garofalo, as well as Peter Schrager. Now, the 4-time Pro Bowl selection is expected to have significant interest on the market. Furthering on this and expanding on this, okay? Here is what you got, all right? Here's and I got to say this, brother. It was Stamkos was on the team, but that was Kucherov's team, brother. Nikita Kucherov. Yeah, and they did that with Stamkos. But man, Stamkos is a perfect example of a number 1 overall pick, so talented. He didn't start winning till Nikita Kucherov came around, right? Like till they got a stacked roster. But yeah, they did that with Stamkos. They put him on the IR, and then when Stamkos was ready to come back, boom, put him on. It's very that's going to get changed. It's kind of unfair. It's a very unfair advantage. It's one of the biggest salary cap circumventions in all of sports. But anyways, here's the deal on X. Now, this is why it went down. First of all, guys, the league year, he's going to be released at the start of the league year on March 13th. Now, he is going to be designated as a post-June 1st cut. So that means Miami just created $18.5 million worth of cap space off this move. Remember, they created 13.7 off Ogbah, and now they created 18.5. So they've created about 32.2 million with 2 moves. The problem is you cannot use the 18.5 million until June 2nd. That's the issue. And I'm sure they're going to try and find a way to circumvent that by using it as on a current extension in-house. Now, Xavien Howard has 29 interceptions since 2016. And that's the most of any quarterback. And that's tied for the 4th most in Miami Dolphins history. He was named a Pro Bowler 4 times. And he was also an All-Pro in 2020. When you talk about his 8 seasons with the Miami Dolphins, you're talking about 100 games. You're talking about 29 interceptions, 95 passes defended, 331 tackles, 4 forced fumbles, 4 touchdowns, and an absolute stud. Pro Bowler, All-Pro. And it sucks, man. Now, injuries have impacted what he's been able to do. He's had lower body, lower extremity injuries, whether it's been the groin or whatever the case may be. It sucks. He wasn't even out there for the loss of the Chiefs. And it sucks, man, because we tried to make it happen with him. We gave him a new money when the ink on his old deal, when he had just signed it, hadn't even dried yet. And you knew it was coming because $4 million of his $15.4 million base salary this year was about to be guaranteed when March 15th hit. And a $3 million bonus was due on the 14th of March. So we knew this was coming with the new league year opening on the 13th. If they would have cut him pre-June 1st, it would have only given the Miami Dolphins $2.8 million to use at the start of the new league year and about a $23 million dead cap hit. So it made no sense. It just made no sense. So now you've got Jalen Ramsey on the roster, as well as Cater Kohu, Cam Smith, Ethan Bonner, and Keon Crossan. And Keon Crossan saves you almost $300 million if you were to cut him right now. So Keon Crossan could be another cap casualty. Aldo says, sad to see them go, but they were the right moves. Thanks for the memory. Hashtag thanks for the memories. Agreed. 110%, Aldo. You nailed it. Knight says, nothing crazy. Spent the week in Orlando. Amazing, bro. Listen, coming from a guy who's married to a Disney nut, I love Universal. I love all the parks, et cetera, et cetera. I love Orlando. And I don't know why enough tourists don't go to the Disney themed water parks. Those water parks like Blizzard Beach and everything like that, they're fantastic. I love going to the water parks. So, but listen, Xavien Howard, I'm absolutely, again, it sucks that we were not able to win anything significant for Xavien Howard. It feels like Rashad Jones all over again, and it kind of, feels like on the offensive side, Landry all over again, defensively, Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor. So much greatness has come through and we haven't been able to win them, but we're on the right path. 4 straight winning seasons, 2 playoff appearances. Now this team needs to learn how to win. And this is what I've said all season. There's levels to this ish, right? There's levels to this shit. You got to learn how to win, right? Burrow hasn't even learned to win at the highest level yet. He hasn't won a Super Bowl. He's won at the level right under, but there's levels to this. You got to learn to win in the regular season. You got to learn to win on the road in the playoffs. You got to learn to win, as an underdog in the playoffs. You got to learn to win in the wild card. You got to learn to win the divisional. You got to learn to win in the conference championship. You got to learn to win in the Super Bowl because each level the competition gets harder. The windows get tighter. So there's levels to this, man. And this team, they're learning how to win right now. And the process sucks because we're not seeing immediate results. And this fan base went from begging for a quarterback, begging to be relevant, to now we're not relevant fast enough and all this stuff, So it's quite a complexing situation when you look at how the fans treat this team that's starting to turn around and become a winning franchise. 4 straight, if we have another winning record this year, that'll be 5 straight years with a winning record. If we go to the playoffs, then that'll be 3 straight years of the playoffs. Now, I agree. We need to start winning in the playoffs. You won't hear any pushback on me. But in the grand scheme of things, we're trending towards that. And I agree with a lot of the sentiment out there. I wish we were trending faster. You're not going to hear any pushback on you, but it is what it is right now. You got to step back, be objective, and realize, hey, would you take the last 2 years and 4 years over what we had been through the prior 10 before that? Because I would. So it's just got to put things into perspective a little bit. You got to appreciate the moment a little bit more. But I do agree with a lot of you that are getting impatient. 110%. They didn't live up to my expectations this year. They didn't win at least a playoff game. And it sucks that we didn't. And it sucks that a guy like Xavien Howard, who's been such a great contributor to this franchise, wasn't able to contribute in arguably the biggest moment in the last since 2016 was this year, right? And I would say it was even bigger than 2016 because 2016 we didn't have Tannehill, we had Matt Moore. Last year we didn't have Tua, we had Thompson. So obviously we finally get a quarterback healthy, and it decides to be minus 29 with 29 mile per hour wind gusts. But that's the way the cookie crumbles. And Tua didn't step up enough. McDaniel as a coach didn't step up enough. And I wish we would have had a guy like Xavien Howard in there to step up and help out a little bit. But it is what it is. And again, I want to say this, though. Xavien Howard, one of my favorite players to don the aqua and orange. Man, to you, I say thank you for the memories. To you, I say you should have won Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago. To you, I wish nothing but the best, and I wish you could have stayed, and I hope you go out there. Listen, I hope you get paid, but a part of me, I ain't gonna lie, is hoping that market isn't as hot as he thinks it's going to be, and we're able to bring him back at a team-friendly price. I know that's like a 1% chance, and it's not happening. And we've got the heir apparent, the next kid to step up and kill a Cam Smith. But, man, listen, X, loved you as a player. I wish things could have been different. I wish we would have won more for you. It sucks, but you will always be remembered by me as one of the best secondary players I've ever watched in my lifetime, wearing our colors proudly, and you are an immediate Ring of Honor inductee when you retire. So thank you for the memories, X. And one last time, because I won't be able to do it again, it seems. X, baby. One more time. The signature. I did this so many times over the years, live reacting to your games when you came down with a huge pick. And that's one more time for X, man. Appreciate you, sir, and everything you did for this team and this franchise. And I wish it could have been different. I really do. And we could have won something for you. Speaking of X, though, shots fired today by Jaylen. I told y'all, I told each and every one of you that this is where Fangio effed around and found out when he crossed Jalen Ramsey. Look at this. Look at this. This is Jalen Ramsey's farewell. He said, should be crazy how stuff plays out sometimes. But one thing I know for sure is that it was an honor teaming up with the greatest corner in Miami Dolphins history, in my opinion. X with a lock and in brackets. I won't ever forgive dude for not utilizing our full skill set. Oh boy. I told all y'all. I told each and every one of you when he scoffed at X, when X asked to shadow Diggs, he got away with it. When Ramsey was coming to him and suggesting to shadow, when Ramsey was coming to him and suggesting Cam Smith to play, etc., nope. With Fangio's attitude and the way he handled business, that's the guy he rubbed. That's where he messed up. It wasn't how he rubbed X. It was how you rubbed Jaylen. Jaylen was brought here to be the leader of this defense. He's the best defensive back in the NFL. He's won a Super Bowl. Fangio, I got to be the one to tell you, Vic, he's won more Super Bowls in your system than you did. Using an iteration of your defense, Jalen Ramsey's been more successful as a player than you've been as a coach. And you heard Anthony Weaver talking about guys being multiple. You heard Anthony Weaver talking about how we were doing a disservice to Jaylen, not using him the way we should have used him. We said it all year. Javon Holland, same thing. Javon Holland, you go to Oregon to put on the Oregon tape, could play the boundary, could play the slot, could play out the line of scrimmage, could play in the box, could play in the single high, two high, whatever. Cam Smith has the same type of athletic profile where he could probably do that as well. This is where you messed up, Vicky. You crossed the wrong guy here. So I had to show this because, I mean, Jalen Ramsey straight up saying, I won't ever forgive dude for not utilizing our full skill set. He knew how much better that defense could have been. That defense, that's a scary thought when Jalen Ramsey's telling you we could have been even better on the back end if he would have listened to us. Yeah, Vic Fangio. That's what I'm about to call him, eh? Vic Fangio. Hey, Vicky. Hey, Vicky. So, listen, shout out to X. I appreciate you and everything you did for this organization, my friend. Over 350 of you in the chat. Smash the like button. Icky Vicky. Cooper DeJean would be huge. You all heard what Neil said. That's one of his boys, right? So, all right. Now, all of that said to say this, let's take it back for a minute here. All right. Let's take it back for 1 minute here. Earlier in the day, it came out that the NFL announced that the 2024 salary cap will be $255.4 million per club, with an additional $74 million per club payment for player benefits, which includes performance-based pay and benefits for retired players. Ladies and gentlemen, that cap just went up $30 million. That is historic. That tells you how much this cap could go up again another 30 million next year. With the gambling influx and the new TV deals, we are getting record level. These guys were projecting to be 242 million. It is now 13 million above that. That is a lot of money. Now, Coach AJ, he makes the point. Does that really help though? Won't players want more money? Yes. The problem with this, though, and we'll talk about it, is the tags are coming out. Right? So what I mean by that is when you look at tags, that is basically the average salary, the highest average salary at the position. I don't see teams I don't see agents and players coming around and being like, okay, well, the market for a top, for example, Wilkins. I don't see Wilkins being like, okay, I want 24 million. Then the cap number came out today and he's like, all right, I want 27. I don't think that's happening because no one's going to pay you $27 million relative to the tag right now and where the markets are at. Great question, though, because you are right. I think you're going to see that hike in position. That's going to be over the next few years with guys resetting. I think over the next few years, you will see and feel the wrath of what you just asked, basically. Shout out to Fake Spike and shout out to Nikki. They are watching tonight on Nikki's birthday. Happy birthday to you, Nikki. You married an absolutely fantastic man. One of my day one supporters, one of my friends in this community, Fake Spike, who's always been there for me since day one, through thick and thin, always had my back no matter what nonsense has been going on in this community. You married a fantastic man, and I'm sure he married an absolutely fantastic woman. Happy birthday to you, Nikki. I hope you have an amazing year, a blessed year. And shout out to you for being a fellow February baby because my birthday was about 5 days ago. So shout out to you. Now, I know we missed each other. We're not both Aquariuses, but I hope you have an absolutely blessed 2024. And I hope this year is better than you could have ever imagined it would be. So that is where the cap sits at right now. And that's huge. That's huge. And we're going to get into why that's huge in a second. But let's talk about this, okay? Let's talk about the franchise tag numbers. Or sorry, the 5th-year option numbers. I apologize. So here come the 5th-year option numbers that are coming out, all right? And we got to go over this because we got two guys that fall under two different areas. Now, you see, I'm going to show you, we have no one right now in terms of Jamon Holland, Waddle, or Phillips that will fall under this. But if you see right now, players who have been selected to 2 or more Pro Bowls with the 5th-year option, wide receiver would be about $21.816 million. Now, remember, Jalen Phillips is not a defensive end. He is a linebacker. It's an outside linebacker. That's why linebackers are $24 million and defensive ends are 21. But look at defensive tackles have taken over defensive ends. Anyways, $24 million for an outside linebacker right now who's been to 2 or more Pro Bowls with their 5th-year option coming up, and same with the wide receiver, $21.816 million. Now, where do our guys fall in that? Well, this is where they fall. Okay, I'm going to read this to you. So, if you look at it, they fall in paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. So, Jaylen Waddle, if we were to activate his 5th-year option in May, which they're going to, it's $19.766 million. He has been selected to a Pro Bowl. All right. So Jaylen Waddle, he is going to he hasn't been. I apologize. He hasn't been. I apologize. My bad. I apologize. I don't know why I'm saying he's selected to a Pro Bowl. He hasn't been selected to a Pro Bowl. So $19.766 million. We get away from that. Paragraph 3 here. Players who achieve playtime criterion with no Pro Bowls. Wide receiver, $15.591 million. That is where Jaylen Waddle would be on a 5th-year option. Now, on the open market, I think he's going to be $20 to $24 million. His wide receiver hit is $15.591 in a 5th year. We are activating that in May. I can almost guarantee you. That will be activated by May 2nd. I can almost guarantee you that. All right. Now, you might sit in here and saying, okay, which does Jalen Phillips fall under? Does he fall under players who achieve playtime criterion or players who do not achieve any criterion? Now, I looked this up, okay, and here you go. He actually falls under. Guess what? Here's the thing. He falls under it. He falls under the playtime criterion. All right. When you actually break it down and when you actually look for what it takes, yeah, he falls underneath it. All right. And this is how it works. Just so you guys know. All right. You have to have a certain amount of there's like 3 different options, I believe there is, for you to hit that playtime criterion. And I'm going to read them off to you. I believe I have them up here. I know I looked it up earlier. Here we go. All right. Yeah. Okay. I think I got it right here. All right. So here is what I saw. Okay. This is the deal. All right. So playtime, 75% or greater in 2 of their first 3 seasons. And guess what? He falls under that. An average of 75% or greater over all 3 seasons, or 50% or greater over all 3 seasons. So he falls under he at least falls under the 50% over the last 3 seasons. Because when you look at Jalen Phillips, and this is on playtime, right? This is based upon, availability. This is a playtime criterion, right? So, and when you look at him this year, he missed. Now, I get it. This year, he missed some games. He missed 9 games, right? But he played 17 games in 2021 and 17 games in 2022. So he was basically playing his full seasons out. So that means Jalen Phillips would cost about $14.483 million right now to activate the 5th-year option of, because he falls under here. So right now, to activate the 5th-year option, remember, it would not hit our books next year. It hits our books next year. It would be $15.591 million for Waddle. His market would probably be about $20 to $24 million. And then for linebacker and Jalen Phillips, it would be about $14.483 million. And he would probably, when you're looking at his market, he would get paid around, 18-ish plus $million right now. Probably you'd get paid over 16 million. Either way, my whole point is their 50-year options are well below what their market value would be on the open market. So you activate their options, like I said, this offseason, and then you extend them I try to get them extended by camp. I would activate them by May, and I'd try to extend them by camp. Because guess what? You know what's funny? If you do this properly and you extend them this year, ladies and gentlemen, you're starting to restructure right away. You can play around with the 15.591 million in that 50-year option you give Waddle. That's not going to be the hit. You can play around with the $14.483 million you give Jalen Phillips in his 50-year option. That won't be the hit. That's why you got to get those deals done. So now you can, it's the same thing we're trying to do with Tua right now. It's the same reason why they want to get a deal done with Tua. So that 50-year option money doesn't fully sit on the books and you can play around with it. That's the whole deal with that. Now, when you look at where this team sits from a cap perspective now, okay, we are at, look at right here, we've gone from about $38.5 million under the cap when they announced the 255.4 cap, right? When they announced that, we went from 38.5 million to about 24.63. That's Ogbah's money. That's not including the 18.5 million that's about to come off the books in June for Xavien Howard. So what am I saying to you right now? Hypothetically, well, not hypothetically, technically, ladies and gentlemen, we are only about $6.1 million over the cap if you include the money coming off the books from X in June. The problem is we just don't see that till June 2nd. I mean, and by the way, look at Jalen Waddle's calculated market value here, people. 23.2 million. You see this number right here? See this? Right here on the right side. Okay, look at that. Calculated market value is 23.2 million for Jalen Waddle. We can activate his 50-year option for about 15.591. That's about $8 million less than market value. By the way, Robert Hunt's market value is 11.8 million. You pay him 10 and you get it done right now. I just want to say that. But right now, as it sits, the Miami Dolphins are now only $24.636 million over the cap. But if you were to include the money we get from the Xavien Howard release in June, we are about $6.1 million in cap over the cap right now. All right. Remember, we can still restructure Jalen Ramsey and save another $18.2 million. We can restructure Bradley Chubb and save 14. We can restructure Tyreek and save 12.4. We can restructure Zach Seiler and save another 4. We can, for those 4 players, we can save another $49.4 million. That would put us what? $43 million under the cap. You extend Tua, that's another $12.4 million. Now we're about $56 million under the cap. You can release Jerome Baker and save another 9.8. Mike White another 3.5. Jeff Wilson another 2.9. And Keon Cross another 3. So that's another $19 million. So now we're at about $75 million under the cap. So a lot of moves that can still be made. And that's what your cap outlook is right now for the Miami Dolphins. Hey, it's getting better slowly but surely. It's getting better. All right. Now, speaking of free agency and a few people, I'm going to be doing my top 25 free agency target video will be coming out over the next week and a half. It'll be coming out either next week or at the beginning of the following week. So it's coming very soon for all of you guys. So I want you to be on the lookout for that. We'll have film. I'll break down the top 10 very thoroughly on my list. And it's lining up to be a few Dolphins on that list. But let's talk about a few pending Dolphin free agents, because Drew Rosenhaus mentioned a few of them. Let's start off with what he said on the Joe Rose show about Connor Williams, because it's quite interesting.
Connor suffered a torn ACL, as everybody knows. He had surgery. This was in the Monday night game against the Titans.
Right.
So I do think that we're going to be very methodical and take our time relative to the contract. A lot of it may be predicated on how Connor is feeling physically. He may not be a player that signs at the very start of free agency. He may take more time based on how he's feeling physically. So, Connor's situation has, a degree of uncertainty that's going to be tied to how he's feeling. And really, we'll just take it, one day at a time once we get into the off season. But I'm not sure that is one that'll be resolved as quickly as some of the other players that we represent.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is quite the big development. First of all, shout out to Randy for the $10 donation. I appreciate that. Second of all, what's he saying? He's saying Connor Williams might not be able to go for week one. Connor Williams might not, never mind Connor Williams not being able to go for week one. Connor Williams might not even be able to ready to sign at the beginning of free agency. So Connor Williams, what does that tell you? We just created $18.5 million of cap post June 1st. Connor, he just basically said Connor's focusing on his rehab and he might not sign. Now, we just went over Spot Track. Spot Track said his market value is about $13.5 million right now. Here's the problem. We can't afford to wait around. I know I reported this a few months ago on my Patreon and also on the community tab for you members here. They're high on Andre James, the center out of Las Vegas. Do they pay a guy like that $7-8 million to come in here? Or do they draft a guy like so many people in this fan base are now locked in on us doing? Listen, I want Jackson Powers Johnson. I love Zach Frazier too. Graham Barton's interesting to me. I think Cedric Van Pran in the third is an absolute steal. It's going to be very interesting. Lloyd Cushenberry's out there, another young kid they can mold and develop. There's some center options out there in free agency and in the draft that'll be cheaper and more friendly to the cap and what we're building here than Connor Williams potentially saying, yeah, I want $13 million. And by the way, I won't be back to November. And when I come back in November, I might not even be right till year 2 of our contract. Just doesn't seem like a good business standpoint. I know they're high on him, but I'd be getting Robert Hunt done. That would be my focus. Now, something he also mentioned on the show, he also discussed Andrew Van Ginkel. Drew Rosenhaus said, and I quote, "Of course, this Dolphins organization is interested in re-signing Andrew, and Gink is also going to be coveted by several other teams." He said there's mutual interest, but whether AVG remains in Miami will come down to the market at the start of free agent and how competitive an offer the Dolphins can make. So it sounds like we can also wave goodbye to Van Ginkel. He's willing to test that market and see what's out there for him. And it might be a lot more than the Dolphins are just ready to offer right now. I don't think they stick with Eichenberg at center, bro. I don't think they view him as a starter. I think they viewed him as a serviceable backup right now. So, I mean, especially with Eichenberg, we're heading into, Eichenberg doesn't have very many years left on his deal too. So we'll see. We know they're going to get offensive line help. It's going to come on the interior. I mean, they could walk away with Troy Fotnew in round 1 and Zach Frazier in round 2. And we're all sitting back here like, oh boy, let's go. And you re-sign Robert Hunt and we're ready to go. So, I mean, we'll see. We will see. Guys, do me the favor. Over 350 of you in the room, smash the like button. Subscribe if you're new. I can't believe I wasn't expecting all y'all to show this much love on a Friday. But I appreciate this late on a Friday. You know, I know if I would have went earlier today, y'all would have been here, 600, 700 you deep. But the fact we're, flirting with 400 all night on a Friday night, I appreciate all of you for showing the love. I got a 3 takes video that's going to be coming to the Patreons this weekend. Appreciate all of you for supporting the channel. Please do me the favor, smash the like button, subscribe if you are new. And as always, you already know what time it is. Fins up all day, every day until Margaritaville sends that cease and desist our way. I will see y'all in the next one. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of the evening, and I will see y'all later. Take it easy, guys.